one thing that we do not want to create is a bag of Skittles.
For me to have to go and Google, like, where did so-and-so put this thing that I know exists? Because it should just be inherent. It should be natural. It should just be a part of my workflow.
It's not that content on YouTube is not good. It's phenomenal. But the thing is if you're going to step into this space and you're going to call yourself an expert, you should be contributing back to that knowledge base.
And there are just times where you know that you can't get an answer unless you're talking to a human being.
We know that you care about selling cupcakes. Like, let us block the cookies so you can keep baking cakes.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we seek to uncover the core tenets of what makes great WordPress hosting. I'm your host, Jesse Friedman, and today I have the pleasure of talking to Krys Lambiase, who is the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Bluehost. Thanks, Krys, for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. You and I have known each other for quite a while, huh?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we go way back in the days before even I think Bluehost was acquired. So yeah.
Yeah, long time. It's been really great working with you, and the things that you do get me super excited. You and I were just hanging out at a conference in Dallas, in DC.
Yeah, Digital Summit.
Yeah, that's right. And so it was one of those types of conferences where when you're sitting at the booth and the sessions are going, it's very quiet. And you and I were talking about a whole bunch of different ideas around marketing and the ways in which we approach helping end customers. And one of the things that we touched on was just around personalization, which is something that I cut my teeth on, and I was always just super passionate about, because I think especially when we're building products for customers who need to work within a interface that's not always the easiest thing for them to learn, that in product marketing can serve two purposes. It can not only help to upsell something,
Right.
but it can also help to inform or educate customers. And so that is just one aspect of the larger work that you're doing to help customers be successful online. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how you're working these days?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, you kind of hit it right on the head. We are working to, WordPress can do many, many things, right? It can build any kind of website. If you can imagine it, you can pretty much achieve it. And sometimes that's really daunting for people. And so what I've been working on is helping guide people. It's like, okay, let's start with what it is your goal is, what kind of website you want to build, and sort of, I don't want to say narrowing the funnel, but removing some of the distractions, some of the noise while they're in the product, or even, heck, while they're on the website in some cases, to say, you came to us to say, I'm trying to build a wedding photography website. I should have a landing page that speaks specifically to the plugins that would help you build a wedding photography website, right? I should build a product that is specific to helping you build a wedding photography website. And then when you get into that product experience, it should feel exactly like that. The plugins, everything along those lines are personalized to you. We achieve that through, some AI functions. We achieve that through literally curating the package itself. But my main focus has been like, let me learn more about truly what they're trying to achieve and help them get there.
Yeah. And we often see that that's often done through, or at least the first steps that any hosting company takes is onboarding, right? They kick off a series of questions and they ask you about what is your goals are, what you're trying to achieve. But you guys go a little bit beyond that, right? Like you have tooltips and other things that are extending onboarding into a more perpetual state, like an indefinite state of communicating with that end customer.
That's exactly right. And so, if you were to rewind the clock 5 years, I'd say, being generous maybe, but the bottom line is it always stopped at onboarding, right? It's like you went through this onboarding flow. And I won't call out any other companies here, but like there's always a sort of curated onboarding flow. Let us learn a little bit more about you. That serves two purposes. One for the marketers, selfish marketers such as myself, and the other one is for absolutely for the benefit of the customer. But then that's where it stopped. And that now here you are in this ecosystem, and you got to figure out how the tools work and which buttons do what and everything along those lines. What we have been building lately is sort of this ongoing help engine, where the more that we've learned about you in onboarding, the more that help engine becomes curated to you. And so as you're in there developing your website, building out the designs, this we call it AI help, honestly, but I mean, it knows what you're trying to achieve and starts to give you very, very tailored articles and tailored how-tos and guided steps on how to do that one thing that you originally showed up to accomplish.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the end product, like, hey, did you know someone who also builds out wedding photography websites, they really enjoy these plugins for these reasons, right? Whether it be lazy loading or a gallery view. It helps you not have to scroll through the litany of that marketplace. Instead, just kind of like makes it nice and tight for you to be like, okay, these are the things that would absolutely be pertinent to me.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. So when we think about these end customers, are you doing this for the DIYer who's trying to build their business website and also they're stocking the shelves and maybe doing the accounting and all that other stuff, and for agencies and for enterprise, or is there a more primary focus?
The the answer is yes. I think to all of it, it is a matter of our bread and butter is always going to be the entrepreneur, if you will, the person who has the idea, the person who's like, you know what, they woke up and I have a passion for X, Y, and Z, and I want to say that to the world, right? In some cases, and this is kind of how we've approached it. In some cases, that's always who you're talking to in some way, shape, or form. The enterprise is nothing more than a macrocosm to the microcosm of the entrepreneur. That enterprise at one point in time was an entrepreneur, right? Now, yes, some of their challenges are different. They've gotten larger, right? The risks are bigger, right? But at the end of the day, they're trying to achieve something that they feel strongly about for whatever reason they feel strongly about it. An agency is nothing more, in my opinion. I don't want to diminish agencies, but in my opinion, is nothing more than someone who's going to help facilitate that exact same thing, right? They are the middle person between that entrepreneur and their goal. And so an agency does it at scale. They do it for multiple people, but at the end of the day, they're still trying to solve those problems that the entrepreneur may have. And so when I say the answer is yes, sorry, this is a long answer to a short
No,
question,
it's a great answer. Keep
but
going.
when I say yes, what I'm saying is like if we can solve the problem at the microcosm, we are in theory also solving the problem at the macrocosm, right? If we solve it for the end user, we are solving it for the enterprise. I say this the same about novices versus pros, right? If you're brand spanking new to WordPress, if I've made this easy for you, and if you're a pro who you know WordPress like the back of your hand, the staging should still be easy. Design should still be easy. The notion of cloning a website for more and more clients should still be easy, right? And so the answer is yes, but I personally believe in if I can make that entrepreneur happy, if I can make them successful, I can scale that whatever that product development is, whatever that customer experience is to a larger sense so that I am now talking to the agency and I am now talking to the enterprise and say, hey, look, millions of entrepreneur customers love this. And you, one enterprise customer, you're also going to love this for these reasons.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's interesting because when you talk about a DIY or an entrepreneur, someone who's going to be doing this on their own, they don't necessarily know all the components of
Right,
hosting, all the pieces of the puzzle. They need a little bit of extra help to try and
right,
figure out, like, which SEO tool should I use, or why should I even use SEO, or even what is a plugin.
right,
And so I think that creating an interface that is going to work for them and make it an easy experience for them is also going to be the same experience that's going to be great for the person who knows what they want and they have an opinion about it, because great UI and great design is going to transcend whether or not they're experienced or not. Because like you said, staging, right? You can, through a user interface and great design patterns, create a way to inform someone who doesn't know what staging is
right.
exactly how to use it and all that. But then someone who is very familiar with it, it can become a natural progression of their tool set, and it can become ingrained directly into their workflow. And because it's well designed and created in a way that makes sense, it's not a complication, or they're trying to find the thing that they know should exist and they can't seem to get their hands on it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that I always I task some of my development or UX partners and peers with is the one thing that we do not want to create is a bag of Skittles. And what I mean by that is like you log into a user interface and there's just several different color icons everywhere. And yeah, sure, all the tools are there, but it looks like someone spilled a bag of Skittles onto the screen. It's like, that's not what we want. We want to know, we want to guide someone through step one, step two, step three. And if they want to venture off of that path, right? Wherever it is that they want to go next, we should know where they're trying to go and then show them the next path, right? it's not to say that people shouldn't be able to forge their own. There's always going to be people who want to, but man, we've been in this business for a while. We know what the most likely paths are. We should make that nice and easy for people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like the way I think about it is that someone who doesn't have experience with these things needs to have it designed in a way that it's teaching them as they go along, so that they can see the pieces of the puzzle and they know all the components of it. But if I'm someone who, like myself, who's experienced with this and I know that these things should exist and they're, throughout the website, um, I want to make sure that you need to make sure that your user interface is supporting that, because I don't want to have to go research where to press something. To me, it has to be a natural step. It has to exist for me in front of my face, or else I'm just going to assume that you just didn't build that tool. And the worst thing for me is like for me to have to go and Google, like, where did so and so put this thing that I know exists? Because it should just be inherent. It should be natural. It should just be a part of my workflow.
Yep, hit the nail on the head. I mean, that was a challenge that we've experienced for a while. Again, going back about now I'm going back almost 6 years. We did some research and realized that the vast majority of people who are trying to learn WordPress, the number one resource, YouTube. And I'm like, okay, it's not a problem. It's okay if people want to learn, go into YouTube and things along those lines. But you as a WordPress host, you as someone who's saying you're an authority or you are the expert in this, you should be providing that content yourself. It should be there native to the product, right? I mean, that's the truth of the matter. And it's not that that content on YouTube is not good. It's phenomenal. But the thing is if you're going to step into this space and you're going to call yourself an expert, you should be also providing, you should be contributing back to that knowledge base, that sort of, repository of content that your customers can consume. That was a
Yeah,
lot of C's. That
absolutely.
was a lot of alliteration, but yeah.
Well, I think that those YouTube videos are great at doing things like why you should use staging, or how you can use staging, how you can incorporate it into the way in which you deploy a new thing, or how you might use staging to get ready for Black Friday before you go
Bingo.
live. But if you're using YouTube to try and figure out where the staging button is, or like to understand if you even offer staging, then that's a failure, right?
That's
Like
absolutely
that.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting when we kind of double back on those entrepreneurs who are trying to get things going. I think a lot of times where the hosting industry in general kind of misses the mark is that they make this assumption that everyone who runs a business also wants to be a web designer.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that we've come from a place where the WordPress community has so much heart and soul in it, and we go to a WordCamp and we enjoy so much of the time that we spend together, and we learn from each other, and there's just so much passion in it, and then we think that that translates to the hundreds of millions of users across the globe. That may not necessarily be the case, right? Because
Right.
those people are the same people who are sweeping the floors and closing down the shop and doing their accounting and their taxes. And I hate to make the parallels between building a website and doing your accounting for your business,
Yeah.
but it is in some instances similar in that they don't necessarily want to learn HTML or JavaScript or how
Right.
to do these things. What they want is to be successful. They want
That's
their
correct.
business to thrive, and a website is a mechanism or a way in which they can achieve that. But
Right.
they don't necessarily want to change, like if you run a hair salon, right? Like you don't necessarily want to change industries and become a web designer and learn all this code and everything else. You want to build a website that allows you to book appointments. And if you as a product marketer can make it easier for them to accomplish that goal, you're doing your job, but you're also helping them to spend more time putting back into their own business and working on the craft that they care about.
That's exactly right. It's the job to be done, right? And one of the things this isn't a masterclass in messaging, but one of the things that I think a product marketer, a successful product marketer does a really good job in this industry if they can say, you can keep doing X while we do Y, or we do Y so that you can continue to do X, right? It helps sort of make that connection in a customer's mind or in a prospect's mind of like, look, we know that you care about selling cupcakes. Like, let us block the cookies so you can keep baking cakes, right?
Right.
That kind of notion. And they're going to like, whoa, okay, that's some clever marketing, whatever along those lines. But the truth of the matter is let us take care of the technical details so you can stay focused on your job to be done. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's why the whole managed hosting and managed WordPress sort of industry kind of blossomed, was because we realized people do not want to become sysadmins. They do not want to become WordPress experts. I love talking to people at WordCamps and I feel the passion. And sometimes I get locked into it too, where we'll be working on a new campaign and I'll be using vernacular and all kinds of terms that I'm like, oh no, everybody knows this. And then I realized, no, the only people who know this have built with WordPress before or are deep into WordPress.
Yeah.
And I have
Oh,
to pull
that's
back. I
absolutely
have
it.
to pull back. So,
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, I think that, sometimes we underestimate or overestimate the way in which our brands become synonymous with certain types of users. And I think that Bluehost, for example, has been a remarkable job in the shared hosting space for a very long time. You've been able to provide services at scale at an affordable rate so that people can
mm,
have a lower barrier of entry into hosting. But now you've mentioned managed hosting. I'm
mhm,
curious what your thoughts are on what is a good differentiation between typical hosting and managed hosting. We had a previous episode where we had Jess Frick on from Pressable, where she has dedicated most of her career to providing managed hosting.
right.
And so we asked her, what do you think defines managed hosting? When
Mhm,
there is no definition, right? There is
right.
no, this is exactly what you get with managed hosting. But I'm curious, when you think about Bluehost kind of moving towards providing services for agencies and enterprise and doing that really, really well, what are the core components of managed hosting that you want to bring to those customers?
Yeah. That's a phenomenal question because you again, this is something that I have said several times internally, which is, look, no one, you go to any one company, right? Just do a general search, and what they call it managed versus what the next company calls managed versus what the next company calls managed. There's some common threads there, right? Yes, we'll do automatic WordPress updates for you, right? There's some common threads in terms of, hey, PHP updates, you guys don't need to worry about that. We got you, right? Classic things like that. I'm like, okay, no, that's the core of managed. There's an underlying infrastructure, whether you're on a LAMP stack or you're on Windows. There's an underlying infrastructure that I don't expect the average person to want to even do. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur or if you are a small business or an established small business, or you are in the agency or enterprise space and you have someone on staff who literally would do those things for you. Even those people on staff do not want to waste their time doing those things. They are mundane tasks and they are better served doing other things. So to me, managed hosting is obviously taking all of that off your plate, right? The underlying infrastructure, the underlying updates to that infrastructure, the underlying security of that infrastructure should all be off your plate if you're using a managed hosting provider. With Bluehost, I say we go a little bit further with our Bluehost Cloud, right? With the Bluehost
Yeah.
Cloud, it's like, hey, your performance updates, right? Your speed, things along those lines are now also on the table. It's like we are actively trying to calibrate to make sure that you are receiving the best performance that you possibly can, right? I would go one click further that if you are a very good managed provider, you have learned to tailor your support in some way, shape, or form. You know your
Yes.
customers so well that when they call in, first of all, if they call in and they're on managed of any kind, they better have priority support. Don't send them into Gen Pop, right? It's bottom line is you have this elevated level of support. Secondarily, the level of support should be someone who is L2 or higher. In other words, they understand not just like, oh, I can walk you around your account and your billing information. Let me jump into your server. Let me jump into that host. Let me actually log into WP admin and see what you're seeing, right? And be able to navigate and guide you through all of that. It sounds silly, but I mean, for a long time, managed hosting was just like, hey, set it, forget it. You don't have to think about it. But I do think it has evolved in order for you to differentiate yourself in managed hosting world. You need a level of support that is almost white glove. People feel special. They know that you are taking care of them. And when they call in, it may not be with a problem. It may simply be with a question. That one phone call, I firmly believe, should be answered in that time span. No escalation. No, oh, let's set up another call. Oh, hey, submit a ticket. In that one phone call, let's resolve your problem. That to me is managed hosting.
Yeah, I think that's really great to say. I love your analogy there with Gen Pop. Um, the the funny thing about tech and the way in which we use SaaS platforms or whatever, you can see commonly that and this isn't even just in hosting, right? It's outside of hosting, but anything on the internet, anytime that you're using software of any kind, you can get a feel for the way in which a company wants to provide support by how hard they obfuscate it.
Yes.
So, right? Like there's some companies out there where they make it nearly impossible to to actually ask a question of someone. Amazon is something that comes to mind for me. I'm not even necessarily talking about AWS. I'm talking about like Amazon shopping. They're so focused on providing AI answers and everything else. And there are just times where you know that you can't get an answer unless you're talking to a human being, and the level of work that you have to go through just to be able to have a conversation with someone. But I think that Bluehost has been exemplary in kind of going the other way, which is that you're not afraid to provide support. You're not
That's right.
trying to force people down another path. You're making it so accessible to them that they can think about it as like just like a secondary arm that they have inside their company, that they always have someone. So we talk about Bluehost Cloud, which by the way is powered on WP Cloud,
That's correct.
and leveraging the resources and the platform and everything that Automatic has built. But what Bluehost Cloud is doing is layering a whole nother layer of features, tools, and support on top of that to differentiate yourself in the market. And so let's just be clear here. You're not only providing phone support, but you're providing a higher level of tiered support, right? Like you bypass Gen
Yeah.
Pop, as you
Gen pop, if
say,
you will.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And so what made you decide to do that?
It's sort of a twofold decision, right? One, we knew that cloud was going to attract a more, maybe I say mature, but maybe more established customer base, right? People who, when I say SMB, you're not starting off with an SMB, you have an SMB, right? You are already have a shop that you have a website on, and maybe you're starting to outgrow the confines of shared hosting, right? Or now you're starting to develop some sort of specialized web app, and you're like, okay, well, actually, I need more resources. And so, knowing that we were going to start to attract a more established or potentially even more tech savvy customer base, the last thing that we wanted them to experience was going into a general support sort of queue and then someone saying, okay, well, cool, can you give me your account number and what's the problem? Oh, this is a much more technical issue, hold on while I transfer you to an L2. They're like, absolutely not. Start at the L2, right? Heck, start at the L3. And what I mean by L2, L3 is these are levels of expertise within the support ecosystem. And so start there so that the person on that phone call immediately has a I would say 99.999% chance of having that question answered in the first phone call. That was the promise that we wanted to commit to. That is what we wanted to deliver to the market was one phone call, let's get it solved here and now, right? Instead of having multiple escalations and things along those lines. So there was that. I'd say secondarily, it was something new for Bluehost. We had always talked about the notion of priority support or an elevated level of support, and we didn't really know where it would fit in. Do you charge for it? Is it a membership service? Like all these sort of situations. When you bring something to market that is an elevated product, right? Like cloud is an elevated product line. Why not have one of its value props, one of its core features be an elevated level of support? I don't want to say it sells itself, but it's like, no, it deserves it. It deserves it both for the customer, but also for what the product delivers. It deserves that level of focus and understanding. It, whether it be WordPress or the infrastructure, does require a higher level of technical expertise at the support level. So let's just build it right in.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And when we think about this is a common thread that we see on this podcast over and over again, is that the value in the diversity of hosting, because
Mhm.
you're able to distribute WordPress and it's beneficial to the ecosystem, but doing it in a way that you're able to cater to the needs of the customers that you're talking to, and you can dive into those things and provide specific services. So there isn't one nonstop shop for WordPress, right? They can go to a variety of different places. But when we think about the way in which we market support to end customers, how do you think that the entrepreneur or the agency is valuing support, and when they comparison shop for hosting, what are the things that they're looking for? What are the pieces of that puzzle that they're saying that Bluehost Cloud is definitely the place I want to go? You know, is it the thing that knocks them over the fence and says, yes, I'm going to do it? Or is it a foundational element that they just need to have it?
That's yeah. So it's that
Couple
last part of the
questions there.
yeah, I was like, it's that last part of the question that I'm going to attack first. Support is usually considered table stakes. When you look at the matrix of like, how do you bring a product to market? You have your table stakes, you have your detractors, and you have your delighters, if you will, right? Support most of the time lands in the table stakes feature set, which is kind of funny because when you look at support at the 1,000-foot view, like, of course, everyone's like, yes, if something goes wrong with my product, like you said with Amazon, I should be able to talk to a human being, right? Or in some way, shape, or form, solve my problem. So support is like, yes, table stake. But when you zero in on support and you start to break it apart, there are delighters there. And so the delighter for support for an entrepreneur does differ a little bit from the delighter of an agency support interaction. Let's break down like just straight up, entrepreneur for a second. Entrepreneur, they don't have time. They're like, hey, I'm running a business here and my website is down. What is going on? Right? That support should be responsive. It should not kick the can down the road.
Their site's not on Bluehost Cloud
Not
though.
on not on Bluehost Cloud, but I'm saying it's like this is a common yeah, this would be something that would give someone
Right.
heartburn,
It's a
right?
com. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. If you are on Bluehost Cloud, your site is not down, you have 100% uptime. You're fine.
Right.
But the thing is like, hey, let's take a different angle. I'm calling him because like, I want my picture to do this, or I uploaded a GIF and it's just not doing that, right? It's like I'm about to run a gigantic Valentine's Day sale and I cannot get these banners to stick. They want someone to fix that in that very small sense. Like, let's get this fixed. From an entrepreneur's standpoint, how you delight them, fix that problem as quickly as possible. Fix it with them on the phone. Boom, it's done. Is there anything else I can do for you? Right? No. Fantastic. Have a great day. From an agency standpoint, I am trying to do this at scale. The problem that I am having it is much larger because if this continues to persist, it affects hundreds, 50, 100, 1,000 of my clients. I need this fixed. Now they're still looking for that one call fix, right? But the difference between this is that level of expertise. There's a design problem versus a wide scale. I need this either at the infrastructure level or I need this within my control panel to be fixed. The same result must exist between these two cohorts, but that notion of Bluehost Cloud providing the priority or elevated support, we need to be able to fix that problem. Doesn't matter who the heck is talking to us. And this is where I land on the scales of expertise. I fixed a problem for an entrepreneur. I now know that solution. That solution can now be applied to my agency. I fixed a problem for my agency. That problem now applies to the next agency and the next agency after that. Scales of expertise, I think, are only applicable or only able to be achieved with a company who does, in fact, prioritize an elevated level of support. They put that as their differentiator, despite the fact that it is considered a table stake.
Yeah. That's a great point. I think that, you touched on two things there from an entrepreneurial standpoint and from the agency standpoint. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is save them time, right? So they can make more money. And I think that, when we put ourselves in the shoes of our end customers, which I think is absolutely vital whenever you're running any kind of business, especially one related to WordPress, because there's so many different ways to use WordPress. But I think one of the things that we need to understand is that that entrepreneur is not sitting at that computer 8 hours a day, right? They probably carved out like, hey, I have to drop all these other things and I'm going to spend 3 hours on Friday building this new landing page for this new product that I'm going to start selling. And so if they get hit a stumbling block, that's not only detrimental to the fact that they're not going to achieve their goal that day, but they may not even be able to return to it for another week.
That's right.
Right. So
Right.
having the ability to just reach out and talk to someone at that exact moment and get them unblocked is huge. That's a huge differentiator.
And I would also throw out the fact that the one thing you do not want as any kind of host, right? WordPress host, I don't care what kind of website host you are, you don't want them to become discouraged. People give up. People give up, right? And
Yeah.
if they give up
Right.
because this becomes too difficult, it becomes too much this is the third time they've tried to make this happen and they cannot get support to help them, then they give up. That's where the non-renewals start happening. That's where people basically go a different direction. They're like, you know what? I'll run it all on Facebook. It'll be fine. And now you've literally lost this company or this customer for the industry because of just how difficult you made it to solve their problem.
I love it. It's like you're a listener to this podcast because you touched on another thread, right? Another narrative that we keep running into, which is that when someone's giving a shot to work, like they're trying out WordPress, right? We talked about this actually in the last episode. You're probably taking it as a recommendation from someone, a word of mouth thing, or you've watched a YouTube video or a TikTok video or something out there said, give WordPress a try.
Right.
But whatever host that they stumbled on, whether it be Bluehost Cloud or someone else, that may be the one chance they have to succeed with WordPress before they give up and try something else. And so there is a responsibility to the ecosystem, to the entire community to do the best that you can to keep them happy and successful so that they can continue with WordPress.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, listen, This has been an amazing episode, but I don't want to stop here. I want to keep talking to you. There's so much more for us to go into. We want to get into a little bit more around product marketing and how we can help customers be successful. We want to talk a little bit more about how you balance the technical benefits of Bluehost Cloud with feature-driven messaging, things like that. But we are at time. So, and John, my producer, is once again on the horn telling us that it's a good time to stop. So we're going to do that. We're going to take a break here, and then we will be back with Krys at our next episode. Sorry, everybody, to leave us at a cliffhanger again, but I think you're going to be excited to come back. Thanks,
Awesome.
Krys.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. Do you have a follow-up question for today's guest, thought or comment on anything we talked about, a future guest suggestion, a hosting horror story? What do you think makes WordPress hosting? All your comments shape this show. Drop them on impressive.host. We also appreciate you following us on social media and subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. Finally, do check out our list of open source projects that need support at impressive.host. Whether it's code, community, or cache, you can make a difference. See you next time.